Our reservation for 7 people is accurate, and I kindly request a separate seat for a lady not included in the count. This request, typical of Elizabeth, my husband's mother, echoes her penchant for making loud demands and teasing me. However, today marks a turning point as I've resolved to expose a secret she's been keeping during our family gathering. I'm Natalie, a 28-year-old chef who graduated successfully from culinary school. I work at a highly rated Western restaurant in the city where I met George, a friendly customer who later became my husband. George inherited a historic electronics store, a beloved establishment in the community for 3 generations. Last year, George's father passed away, and he assumed the role of the 3rd-generation owner. My upbringing was in a household filled with culinary professionals, my father, mother, and even my brother. Growing up in such an environment exposed me to various cooking techniques and knowledge from a young age. Thanks to this upbringing and my innate talent, I graduated at the top of my class from culinary school. Despite my usual reserved demeanor, I've always been confident in my culinary skills. However, after marrying George, that confidence began to waver due to our close living arrangement with Elizabeth, which started shortly after our marriage. George's decision to live with his parents, a common practice in his family, came as a surprise. I had hoped to enjoy the early days of marriage just the 2 of us, but George's living arrangement was not disclosed earlier. Regretting it now wouldn't change anything. Living with Elizabeth turned out better than expected initially. She was kind, buying me treats from my favorite bakery, and even took on most of the household chores. However, there was one concern: the seasoning in her meals. Each dish was excessively salty, and while I initially attributed it to her northern origins, it seemed different from the preferences of others from the same region. I have a colleague from the north who prefers a lighter salt taste, making Elizabeth's dishes stand out. For instance, her stew, with vibrant ingredients, was overshadowed by an intense sauce, making it feel like directly putting concentrated sauce in my mouth. Doubts about whether this was the standard taste lingered, and my husband's comment about adjusting the taste to be lighter than usual only intensified my inner questioning. These days, consistently consuming Elizabeth's cooking seemed to have dulled my taste buds, creating a sense of dissatisfaction, even when preparing dishes at work. Doubts about my own sense of taste crept in, but fortunately, the head chef conducted the final taste checks, ensuring no major issues. Nevertheless, the heavy seasoning in Elizabeth's daily meals became a serious concern for me. To cope with this, I devised a plan. One solution was to wake up earlier than Elizabeth and prepare my own breakfast. While this noon routine prevented a decline in my work performance, it unintentionally led to a frosty attitude from Elizabeth. When I greeted her in the morning, she began to ignore my words and pass by. One evening, when I sought her opinion on a dish I had put a lot of effort into, she responded with criticism, questioning if I had seasoned it properly. Despite my explanation, she insisted it was bland, adding a significant amount of sauce to the dish. I couldn't help but feel that there might be some reason or background to her change in attitude. My husband has 2 older sisters, both of whom have established families. They welcomed me warmly from the beginning of our marriage and offered support if I ever had trouble with their mother. However, Emily, one of the sisters, had a different experience. As I helped with food preparation for her daughter's grand birthday celebration, the dining table was filled with a variety of distinctively unique and appetizing dishes. During the party, Emily's daughter expressed dislike for the stew, commenting on the heavy seasoning. When Emily suggested learning cooking tips from me, Elizabeth angrily exclaimed and left the scene, leaving me puzzled about the underlying issues in her behavior. I had some regrets about offering to help with the cooking from the beginning. The party ended abruptly amid a sour mood. While I believe Emily might have meant her words lightly, it was clear that Elizabeth had put love and effort into her dishes as well. It felt unjust for our heartfelt efforts to be belittled with a mere comment. That night, I lacked the courage to express my apologies to Elizabeth. From the next day onward, life became increasingly tough. Elizabeth would recklessly season the meals I carefully prepared, and on the worst days, she would even throw them away midway through eating. Seeking support from my husband in these trying times, I turned to him for help. However, his response was less than supportive, suggesting that maybe I had antagonized her and needed to listen more. As days passed, the strain in our marital relationship deepened. My husband started coming home late, claiming it was due to work, and even began missing family events. We were only married for half a year, so the idea of divorce felt premature. However, another hurdle emerged when Elizabeth tripped on our stairs and severely injured her leg. Despite Emily's kind offer to help with her care, Elizabeth insisted that, as the wife of the house, it was only natural for me to take care of her. This declaration changed my daily life dramatically, and attending to her needs became a relentless routine, even during work hours. Eventually, my colleagues' patience wore thin, leading me to resign from my job. When Elizabeth learned about my resignation, she seemed gleeful. From then on, my days were consumed with meeting Elizabeth's spontaneous demands at all hours, leaving my mind and body worn down. My husband's reduced presence at home added to my distress, and I began to doubt his reasons for working late. Pondering our next steps, I decided it was time to teach both Elizabeth and my husband a lesson. A few days later, during breakfast, I brought up the idea of divorce, shocking both of them. They questioned the sudden decision, expressing surprise and disbelief. My husband even suggested that my actions could tarnish our family's reputation. In response, I explained my dissatisfaction with the household environment and my determination for change. Confronted with my newfound resolve, they were taken aback. My husband apologized, expressing a willingness to be more attentive to our home life. He even suggested a break, understanding if I wanted to go to my parents for a change of pace. However, he requested that I still help Elizabeth due to her leg injury. Despite feeling disoriented, I sensed a hint of resentment in his words. I asked him to reflect on the situation, expressing my hope for positive changes if we continued to live together. I took a deep breath and calmly replied, "I'll think about it." At that moment, a smug smile appeared on their faces, revealing the evident blood ties between them. For the next few days, the atmosphere at home shifted. My husband began returning home earlier from work, but this improvement was short-lived. He soon started coming home late again, and Elizabeth's behavior reverted to its previous coldness. Despite her leg injury showing no signs of improvement, Elizabeth frequently went out without explanation. As I questioned her actions, I soon discovered a shocking truth. One day, my cell phone rang incessantly, with both my husband and Elizabeth expressing anger about me leaving Elizabeth alone. I sensed they wouldn't understand my perspective, and I revealed that I was at my parents' house. Days later, enjoying a peaceful time at my parents' house, I received an unexpected message from the one person I least wanted to be involved with, Elizabeth. The message contained an apology for her past actions and an invitation to her upcoming birthday party. Though reluctant, considering it as a bit of a luxury treat, I decided to attend. The venue for the party was an upscale restaurant near the station, renowned for a new chef trained in France. Upon arriving, I saw George and Elizabeth waiting with smug expressions. The attendees included Emily, her husband, and their children, making it a small gathering of 8 people. As we entered the restaurant, I confirmed my reservation for 7 people. However, Elizabeth requested a separate seat for me, surprising everyone. The waiter guided me to a slightly hidden seat, and as the evening progressed, the anticipated meat dish raised expectations. While delicious-smelling dishes were constantly brought to Emily's table, George and Elizabeth received none. Elizabeth's loud complaint about the delay in their food drew the attention of nearby customers, leaving me in a state of surprise and anticipation for the unfolding events of the night. I deeply apologize. The chef is preparing something special for the 2 of you, so it's taking a little extra time. Please wait for just a bit longer. Despite her annoyance, Elizabeth's face showed a hint of satisfaction, knowing they were getting special treatment. Soon after, footsteps could be heard coming from the kitchen, and their expressions froze in surprise. It was me, dressed in a chef's hat and apron. What, Natalie? Why are you dressed like that? Is this your surprise? While Emily and her husband enjoyed my appearance, George and Elizabeth were taken aback. I gently smiled and set the specially arranged dishes before them. I've prepared a special menu just for the two of you. At the center of Elizabeth's plate, a beautiful black lump was garnished with a rich sauce. I'd accentuated this using a special sauce. I'll add a little more topping to this sauce. Pouring more sauce on the dish, I felt satisfied seeing Elizabeth's surprised face. And here's a special dish for you, sir. On George's plate, various delicacies were beautifully arranged, each shining brightly. Please try it with this special sauce. Placing an elegant sauce bottle on the table, I watched the service. Emily's daughter laughed cheerfully, and they both looked a bit surprised yet intrigued. However, their expressions soon turned to anger. This is unbelievable. I've never seen such inappropriate service. Call the manager. George exclaimed. I calmly replied, I'm the person in charge here. Is there a problem? Elizabeth joined in. Are you the one allowing such disrespectful service? This is unforgivable. We're going to exercise our rights as customers and sue you. I continued, feel free. But we're also considering legal action for the disruption you've caused. How dare you? It turned out that they often visited this restaurant and were always demanding. The staff already saw them as problematic customers, and now, with my brother Peter managing the restaurant, they were being treated impartially. Peter, Elizabeth, and George were utterly stunned upon realizing that the person in charge was my brother. In reality, this popular restaurant was a product of Peter's diligent management and hard work. They had not been informed of this fact before. Peter had previously undergone advanced training in France and couldn't attend our wedding. Although he had sent a generous gift, he had never spoken with Elizabeth or George. However, he remembered their faces from family pictures. We didn't know any of this. Could you explain? Emily asked, cheerful, but with a slight shadow in her eyes. Actually, we came here to dine with some shopkeepers from the town's marketplace. It's trendy these days to have dinner in such modern restaurants. At that moment, a staff member approached politely. During your last visit, you left behind an item. Please allow me to return it. Handing over a shimmering earring, Emily added, you often dine here with men wearing earrings. Isn't that a bit risky? George's face momentarily froze in surprise at Emily's question. How did I come to know of this secret? A few weeks ago, I harbored suspicions and decided to hire a detective to investigate. The result was a collection of photos depicting George enjoying dinners with another woman at this restaurant, and even moments where they entered a hotel together. To be honest, I felt more relieved than betrayed. Marrying him was a mistake. I'm planning to file for divorce. Just be prepared. This was the first time George had openly spoken about divorce. But for me, it was an anticipated moment. Just don't forget to pay the alimony. Don't worry. I recently secured a big business deal, and financially, I'm pretty well off now. I'll gladly pay all of the alimony in full. Hearing that gave me peace of mind. Now about you, Elizabeth. Until now, she had been wide-eyed at the unfolding conversation, known by the staff as a regular at this upscale restaurant. What do you want from me? Since my husband passed away, I don't think anyone has the right to complain about my behavior. However, I had also had a detective thoroughly investigate her secrets. It turned out she had been in a secret relationship for 5 years, even though her husband had passed away just a year ago. What are you talking about? Emily and her siblings, hearing this for the first time, stared at their mother in shocked anger. This revelation was unbearable for them, as they deeply cherished their father. Although I, too, was surprised by the investigation's outcome. When I asked the detective why he knew so much about Elizabeth, it turned out that their father had once hired the same detective agency. You deceived him for so long, even while he was still alive. And George, even while with Natalie, you were seeing another woman. How could you? In Emily and her siblings' eyes, deep anger and disappointment shaped the tense atmosphere at our table, catching the attention of other diners who started glancing our way. We promised to resolve this matter at home and called it a night for the dinner. As I left, I high-fived the restaurant staff and Peter, expressing my gratitude. A few days later, under the stern gaze of Emily and her siblings, George and I proceeded with the formal divorce process. Now I'm free. I won't regret anything, no matter what happens, he stated confidently. I never expected this outcome, even after I told you about my bad leg. I never imagined being treated this way. Ah, watch your step. She recoiled in surprise. In truth, her leg had already healed, yet she had been pretending to be in pain to maintain a superior attitude towards me. Her behavior once again left me in shock. From now on, both she and my husband will be strangers. Although our marriage ended within a short span of a year, I had no regrets whatsoever. When I checked my bank account, I was shocked to see that the alimony from both my husband and his mistress had been deposited simultaneously. It seemed like my husband covered her share as well. Knowing this fact, I could finally view them as no longer being a part of my life. Subsequently, there were some interesting developments regarding my husband and his mistress's relationship. He had gone into debt to pay the hefty alimony, but shortly after our divorce was finalized, she dumped him quite easily. From the information I received from Emily, it was revealed that the woman is infamous in the area for targeting married men. After the episode at the restaurant, we were informed by Peter that the regular patrons were also fed up with George and Elizabeth's antics, and they were elated by our surprise. From then on, the restaurant strictly prohibited those two from entering. Moreover, their dishonest attitudes quickly became known throughout the community. A major contract that my husband had been boasting about was eventually canceled, and his electronics store, sustained by the deep trust of the local community, now faced a challenging future. Elizabeth's subsequent life became quite difficult. Suddenly abandoned by her longtime lover, further medical tests revealed that her unhealthy lifestyle was affecting her health. Her health condition was significantly tied to her own way of living, which wasn't deserving of any sympathy. On the other hand, I was fortunate enough to return to the Western-style restaurant where I used to work. Even though they knew about my past, the staff and management warmly welcomed me back. The spaghetti lady, Emily, and her family still came to this restaurant often, and their presence was a significant support for me. They had decided to completely sever ties with George and Elizabeth. The anger towards their actions, especially after the passing of their father and the revelation of the truth, left a deep wound in their hearts, which seemed unlikely to heal. The joy of cooking holds a significant place in my life. Feeling this happiness is the very moment I cherish the most, and when I feel truly blessed.